And if you're staying in here, open your Bibles to Psalm 139. I know it's a little warmer today. That's because the lightning storm last night has obviously affected our ability to cool this room. But that's okay. A lot of you find it to be very cold on most other Sundays. So we'll just be a little bit warmer today, I suppose. Psalm 139, we began looking at the first half of this beautiful psalm last week, and we will study the rest this morning. But I want to begin this morning by saying thank you for your prayers and support this past week. As many of you reached out to check on Candace and me while we were in Oklahoma with our families. I won't go into all the details. If you're new here, obviously you won't know, but I spent much of my week sitting beside two different hospital beds, but praying very different prayers. One prayer for the Lord to preserve life. My stepdad was in the hospital. And then one for the Lord to be merciful in death. Candace's grandfather passed away on Friday. And we were grateful this week for the ways that God was merciful to grant both of our prayers. We were reminded also of how little we control in the realm of life and death. We didn't create ourselves, as Psalm 139 says. It's the Lord who formed us, and we are fearfully and wonderfully made. The Lord is the one who holds our times and seasons, and he knows the days he has ordained for us, as David says in this psalm. So let's read together, beginning in verse 13. We'll read just this section and take it kind of in the last three sections here today. Verse 13, for you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. How precious to me are your thoughts, God. How vast is the sum of them. Were I to count them, they would outnumber the grains of sand. When I awake, I am still with you. There's a painting that hangs in the Boston Museum of Fine Art, and it's by the French painter Gauguin. And even though I know very little about art history or art interpretation or art anything for that matter, this particular painting is helpful for art novices like me, maybe you as well, because Gauguin wrote three questions in the corner of the painting. So the questions are in French, but the painting itself contains all these different seasons of this woman's life. It seems like it's scenes from the life of a girl and shows her at what seem to be different ages and stages of her life. And the questions in the corner, written in French, ask these things. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? And it was painted in 1897, but it poses questions that we're still trying to figure out. Who am I? Who are we? After all, in the painting itself, which scene from the girl's life captures the real her? Is her true identity as the child? Is her true identity as the old woman or the mother? Does your true self keep shifting according to your experiences or your age, your relationships, your preferences? You are in some ways a different person than you were 10, 20, 30 years ago, 40, 50, 60 years ago. Does that mean you're really a different person? Which one was the real you? What's your identity? Are you responsible for making yourself who you are? responsible for self-determining your identity so that your identity depends on your own self-perception or self-determination, which is always changing. How you answer the question, who am I, is a matter of profound importance. I've been faced with this question recently. I've been thinking about my own identity because this is the last Sunday in the pulpit for me for a while. Many of you know that I'll be away on sabbatical this summer. And if you're new this morning or you're visiting and this is a surprise, then you should know you're visiting a church that cares very much for its pastoral staff. And after 6 years of service, pastoral staff members are encouraged to take a time of sabbatical for spiritual renewal and rest. So during the summer, some very wonderful preachers will fill the pulpit here. I'm actually jealous. I won't be able to listen. Some of my favorite people will be preaching. But I want to say it's an honor to serve as your pastor. You've made it a joy, and I'm already excited about the ministry that we've planned for the fall. So I'm deeply grateful for this time. But it was not the last week that I had planned, not the last week that I had imagined. My last week in the office, I didn't imagine it would look like this past week, before I left for sabbatical. I thought I'd have all my ducks in a row, and I told the staff that it's like a tornado came through and blew all my ducks to smithereens. So I was left thinking, have I left things undone? Are there loose ends still to tie up? I'm told that if there are loose ends, we actually have some other good people, fine people who are good at tying also the loose ends. But that means I've been reflecting on what it looks like to step away from my office and my email and my schedule and the pulpit and remember who I am apart from all of those other things. My own identity is bound up with being a pastor in many ways, you can imagine. My brother's a musician in Nashville, actually, and we joke about how we make our living taking the stage every weekend, but in very different venues, okay? He plays downtown in Nashville. They are bars, right? Bars, honky tonks. This is where he plays and entertains people. We were talking this week while I was in Oklahoma, and he said, yes, we both take the stage, but there's a key difference, because what he does each weekend, as he explained it, is about a performance. And the people that he's entertaining know that it's a performance. That is, no one expects that by watching the performance that they have come to know him as the person. Whereas for me, the goal is not performance, right? But genuine and authentic presence, to offer people my own self with genuine compassion and out of a real spiritual connection to Jesus Christ, so that it is a true requirement of my job to maintain an inner life of prayer and connection to Jesus for the sake of ministry to other people. But therein lies the danger as well, doesn't it? At what point is reading scripture more for a message than for a meal, so to speak? At what point is my communion with God overtaken by the obligation to create spiritual content for others? Who am I? My identity is not these things. Psalm 139 reminds me, I was not first a pastor. I was not first a preacher. I was formed and known by God long before any of that. By the God who saw me because he knit me together in my mother's womb, long before I had done anything of value, long before I had produced anything helpful for people. And in response to the question, who am I? Psalm 139 speaks with this gentle but profound authority. And it declares that your identity, my identity, our identity is not defined by our roles, is not defined by our feelings. It's not even defined by our self-awareness. Who we are did not begin with our career or our productivity or our own self-perception. Our identity is not what we make it to be. It began with the one who formed us in the womb, who bears witness to who we really are. We are not self-made creatures. We are God-known creatures, and our identity at its core is bestowed, given. It's not constructed. There is no one more qualified to tell us who we are than the one who formed our inmost being, than the one who's familiar with all our ways and who holds the days of our lives in his book. Even before you were born, you were known and loved by the God who made you, the God who considers you in his thoughts, as David talks about. Our true identity, not defined by our roles, our feelings, or our self-perception. Our identity is bestowed by the God who formed us, knows us completely, and calls us to live in relationship with him. I think one of the primary struggles in life is that we often think we know who we are better than God does. We believe we understand what we need. We probably think we understand what will make us happy. We probably think that we understand what path we should walk. We live as if our self-perception is more accurate than God's. We believe we know ourselves best, so we think we know what's best for ourselves. And at first glance, that might seem appealing to say, I know who I am. I know me best, so I know what's best for me. And I'll pursue it on my own terms. But if you just look back at human history so far, the track record for that kind of thinking, our track record of knowing what's best for ourselves is pretty terrible. It's a pretty dismal track record. Does humanity really know what's best for itself? Doesn't look like it. Not all the time. When we pursue what seems best, apart from God, we usually end up disoriented, confused, empty. We make ourselves the center of the story and discover how fragile and small a story that is. But what if we don't know what's best for us? These seniors here are making decisions. Seniors, you have a change of life coming. You're making some decisions, coming into a time where you'll have to determine some things. You'll have to answer the big questions in life. And can either receive your identity from others. You can receive your identity from what the world tells you are. You can create your identity based on what you think is best, even. Or you can receive your identity through relationship with God. But be aware of the implications. If you receive your identity from others or try to construct it yourself, you'll never be free from comparison. You'll never be free from that. You will always measure yourself against others to determine your own significance. That's true of any of us. You start to build your own identity, and pretty soon you're just measuring your significance based on comparison with other people. You'll measure your success or by measuring it against other people's success or your failure. Your worth will then be tied to success, and when failure comes, it will devastate. This is for any of us. If you create your own identity based on your performance, your achievements, your status, you will have to depend on the praise and affirmation of others in order to know your worth. It's not just for seniors. And when the things that we built our identity on crumble, you'll struggle to defend it, to preserve it, to save your identity. Ask me how I know. You'll have to constantly manage and create the image of who you are. You'll probably end up running someone else's race, being judged according to the gifts of others, and for no purpose other than trying to build your own self. But our purpose is more than that. Our purpose can't just be to construct our own identity. It's too small, it will never satisfy, and God has called and gifted each of us for part of his story. He's gifted us all of us, in particular ways to run the race that is marked out for us, the writer of Hebrews says. The race marked out for you, not someone else's race, not your brother's race, not your sister's race, not your father's race or your mother's race or whatever, anyone else's. You will give an account to God for how you have leveraged and used the gifts and abilities and personality and talents that God has given to you. God will not ask me, well, why couldn't you play the guitar like your brother? Why couldn't you be better at this or more like that person over there? No, don't run your race in a lane that was never meant for you. Don't copy someone else's pace. Often we judge ourselves by the assignment that God has given someone else. We compare to someone else and we think, well, I can't do that. But God never expects you to succeed at someone else's calling because they had different gifts. God shaped you for the work he gave to you and you and you and all of you. Not for the work he gave to them or them or them. Sometimes we look at someone else's impact, someone else's success, and we feel inadequate, but you're not. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. You're not inadequate. You're just not them. You're you. And you're not meant to be them. You're meant to be you, the way God made you. God formed and made you to be you. God's not gonna hold me accountable for walking a path that requires gifts he gave to other people. He's gonna hold me accountable for walking the path he gave to me. David says in verse 16, your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. In other words, God knows what's coming. We don't have access to the future, but God does. Every decision we make is based on limited information because we don't know all the variables. God knows all of those things. And he knows how he formed us, which means, look at the next verse. How precious to me are your thoughts, God. They are precious. Well, I should want to know what God thinks about me because he knows my future. He knows my gifts. He knows my abilities and personality. He formed me and knit me together. So of course, I want to know what he thinks about my life. God's thoughts would become precious to me if I really believed God knows all of it. He knows how I am meant to be me. He knows all the days ordained for me. I'd be foolish not to consult God's wisdom for my decisions or to guide me in my life. God's wisdom becomes precious because he knows me best and he knows what's best for me. And then look at the beauty of the next verse. It says, how vast is the sum of them, were I to count them, they would outnumber the grains of sand. When I awake, I am still with you. When I awake. Let me ask you, are you aware of very much in the moment that you first wake up in the morning? Are you aware of how much time has passed? No, you're not, because sometimes you wake up and it's 3 a.m. and it's not time to get up yet, or you wake up and it's 9 a.m. and you're like, oh no, I needed to get up at 7. You were not aware of that. You have been unconscious, hopefully for most of the night, unless you don't sleep well and then you've been unconscious for part of the night. But the point is, when you awake, this is when you have been unconscious, at your most vulnerable, unaware, inactive, and God remains near. God never went to sleep. When you go to sleep wondering what tomorrow will bring, the first thing you awake to is God's presence still there. Nothing has changed. I don't know, it could be that David means when I awake after death, even then I'm still with you. He might mean that. In the same way that God formed me in the womb for my birth, so when I awake after death, he will be there with me in the resurrection. Could mean that. But either way, your identity remains through sleep and through death because God bears witness to who you are even when you're not aware of anything. Our true identity is grounded in the gaze of God upon us and what he sees. It's not our roles, our feelings, our self-perception. is bestowed by the God who knows us and loves us completely. But then I want you to notice how jarring the next verse is. This is kind of weird, really. Psalms are weird sometimes. Verse 19, if only you, God, would slay the wicked. That took a turn, didn't it? Away from me, you who are bloodthirsty. They speak of you with evil intent. Your adversaries misuse your name. Do I not hate those who hate you, Lord, and abhor those who are in rebellion against you? I have nothing but hatred for them. I count them my enemies. We don't know what David was going through during this season, but it seems jarring to move from God's intimate presence and knowledge into this section. But I wonder, though, if the personal nature of the psalm is precisely what leads David to this. This psalm is intensely personal. You formed me, God. You knit me together. You know me. You searched me. And part of what this means is that sin looks different to David. It's not abstract. Those who are bloodthirsty, violent, speak against God with evil intent, misuse God's name, pervert God's justice. Those who hate God, who rebel against him. That's who David is. David is looking on sin and rebellion, not just in an abstract or legal sense, but as a personal offense against the God who made us and loves us. And David takes it personally. Do I not hate those who hate you, Lord? Notice that he's not trying to seek personal vengeance. He's coming to God and saying, what about your justice and holiness, God? Because of his personal relationship with God, sin is not just breaking the rules. It's hatred towards the one who loves us best. And the statement about hating those who hate God is about longing for God's justice. It doesn't nullify or contradict Jesus' command to us that when we are mistreated or when we are persecuted personally, Jesus says that we should show love to our personal enemies, to those who mistreat us. But personal forgiveness does not preclude longing for God's justice. Those aren't mutually exclusive. And in any case, David ends with a prayer for God to search his own heart. He's not being hypocritical. He's asking God at the end to judge his own thoughts. Look at this prayer. In verse 23, he says, search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me and lead me in the way everlasting. At the end of the psalm is simply this striking and beautiful prayer. Search me, God, know my heart. But think about that. Doesn't God already know David's heart? Well, sure he does. So how could David pray this prayer after saying over and over how God knows every thought? He knows when I sit and when I rise. He knows a word before it's even on my tongue. He knows all my deeds. So why would he pray, know my heart? Because this is not about God knowing something about David. This is about David knowing something about David. And this is where we come full circle back to the question, who am I? How do you come to know who you truly are? David says, know me, search me, God. He's asking God to reveal to him something about himself, so that in relationship with God, David learns who he is. That's how you know who you truly are. You walk in relationship with God, and over time, God will reveal to you truth, awareness, identity, and you will find who you are by knowing God more and more. Because if God knows who you are better than you do, I think that means that you can't know who you are apart from God. You have to pray, God, show me, know me, search me, show me any offensive way in me, lead me in the way everlasting, like David prays. That's precisely how David approaches knowing himself. God, you made me, you search me, know me. You made me to discover who I am by knowing you and trusting you. David didn't assume that he could discover who he was apart from God. And the gospel reminds us that the answer to the question, who am I, will never be answered by looking inward to ourselves or outward to the world, but only by looking to the cross, where the one who formed us gave his life for us. The cross shows us that we are both desperately sinful and in need of rescue, and also profoundly loved at the same time. The cross shows us both of those things about us. We are desperately sinful and in need of rescue, and profoundly loved at the same time. And I wonder how long it's been since you've considered how God sees you. Have you prayed like David prayed, God, search me and know my heart, and then show me what you see when you look at me? This is the only way for God to show us. We have to open ourselves up. It's not about God knowing me, it's about God showing me. God, search me, know my heart, then show me what you see when you look at me. It's the only way for me to know who I am. Is to say, God, I want to know what you see when you look at me. Ask God, who do you say I am? What have you made me for? What path have you marked out for me to run? Those are big questions. But just ask with humility. Listen to the one who knit you together and who holds every day of your life in his hands. This is what it looks like to actually live in this way, receiving our identity from God rather than searching for it on our own. It looks like trust, a life anchored in the truth of what God sees when he sees me, his child, his beloved, his redeemed servant. This would mean beginning each day not with a frantic need to prove ourselves or earn our place, but with a quiet confidence that we already belong. We belong to God. It would mean that I don't need to find myself. I'm already found. Instead, I need to follow my Savior, to ask him to show me how I've been made and where he is leading. Whether you're a graduate stepping into a new chapter or someone you're just trying to hold things together through a hard season, it would be foolish to ignore what God thinks about your life. The older you get, it doesn't mean God is done showing you who he wants you to be. Every season has new gifts, new challenges. He wants you to keep coming back to him, to keep coming back to the cross, because ultimately, God's plan has always been to make us like Jesus. So that God's answer to the question, who am I? Is to point us to Jesus, the one we were always meant to reflect. Let's pray.